Filmmaking at its core is a labor of love, but what many unfortunately misinterpret is the labor aspect, which I think this infamous quote echoed around every art school is to blame for. Do not just go make a movie. I understand this seems incredibly harsh and almost goes against why we make films in the first place, but let me explain. The process of creating a film is akin to a marathon. Honestly, I'd argue it's closer to an Ironman. There are 3 stages in both: swim, cycle, run. Pre-production, production, and post-production. Each one of these needs an extensive amount of time and care to garner anything of a certain level of quality, and mastering one unfortunately does not mean you can do all 3. The ideology that you can just pick up a camera and with enough passion and love you can make a great film, I'm sorry, is completely false. However, I would say the only caveat to this, and where I think this advice does apply, is to those who are complete beginners. If you want to make a movie, but you've never written a script or shot a scene, you have no baseline knowledge of how the craft works, then please write anything, pick up a camera, and shoot as much as you possibly can. You will very quickly learn the fundamentals of how films are put together. It will at least give you a base level and foundation that you can build off. I think learning how to make movies is similar to someone learning how to paint. One of the first things you are taught as a child is primary colors and complementary colors. So you learn what works together and then you experiment. Will this work with that? And if I add some of this, what will change? In filmmaking, you ask, if I put this shot here and then that one there, what will happen? Or if I change this angle and add it to this, what effect will it have? And you learn a lot of the basics and you get a pretty good grasp on it. But in painting, if someone were to come up to you and say, just pick up a paintbrush and paint a Monet, you'd think they were insane. You haven't even learned the basics of shapes, perspective, color tone, texture. How on earth are you expected to go from a complete novice to masterclass? It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen by just picking up a brush. Similarly, it doesn't happen by just picking up a camera. There is so much more that you need to learn, and I've actually given a brief overview in one of my previous videos which just lays out the 5 steps that you should go through when creating any form of a film, be it a feature film or a short film of any level at any budget. But to break it down similarly here, you need to learn how to plan and prepare properly for a film, because failing to do so will only result in you running in circles and never progressing. Practice and study writing. Learn the business elements that go into filmmaking: budgeting, hiring, fundraising, pitching, selling. It's vital that you understand these things, and if you don't, then it's vital that you try to learn. And it's okay if you don't know them. There's nothing wrong with hearing all of that and going, I don't even know one aspect of how I would approach that. That's okay. Now you know where your weak spots are, and you can target them and try to learn. We do not live in the movies we so wish we did. You will not be plucked off the street like My Fair Lady and groomed into the next Francis Ford Coppola or Catherine Bigelow. You must work on your craft and focus in on improving the aspects that you can see are weaker than the others. You may have a real knack at cinematography. You may actually have a great eye. You can set up shots beautifully. Maybe you have a talent for writing characters and believable dialogue. You could come from a musical background and you understand sound, and you can make a film sound professional. You may be a great people person, so you can get people on board, or you're very good at communicating what you want as either a producer or a director. These are all fantastic talents, but do not focus on them. If you have talent in some aspects, what most filmmakers unfortunately do is they will lean heavily on those. They will see what they're good at and they will stick to that. And they will just stay in their lane because it's the lane that's given them the most progress or the most satisfaction in a craft. But you should really look at where you're weak. And I can hear you saying it already. This guy doesn't understand what he's talking about. He's contradicting the whole point of the entire phrase and is misinterpreting it. How am I supposed to improve as a filmmaker if I don't just go make movies? Valid point and a correct one, and I agree with you. I'm on your side. But what I'm asking you to do is to switch your perspective of how you are interpreting just go make a movie. You need to divide your work into 2 categories: practice and filmmaking. Why? Because as an artist, I know you do the exact same thing that I do, especially if you're a writer. You think you are missing or lacking one key component that will catapult your film into something that's actually worthwhile doing. Or you're at a level where you think you have so little resources that why would I even bother trying to make this thing that I have if I know it's going to turn out like crap? So you scrap the entire thing in both scenarios and you just wait for divine intervention. And you did that because you wanted to make a movie. Whereas instead, what you should have done is said to yourself, I'm just doing this to practice a certain aspect to improve as a filmmaker. I know it sounds stupid and wishy-washy and this kind of switching perspective thing, like, let me just do what I'm doing, but I promise you, this is something that we all struggle with because we are incredibly insecure about our art. We want it to be worthwhile and to get so many people involved and on board and work hard on this thing that we're passionate about. And then you get to the end result and it's completely lacking what you wanted to, and you get this sinking pit in your stomach where you go, I'm a sham, I'm not good enough, all these people have worked for me, what am I even doing? And then you almost want to burn the entire project to the ground because you're holding yourself to such a high standard when you really shouldn't be. You are only starting. You really are. If you are not already at the top or working in the industry, or hell, if you haven't been doing this for 25 to 30 years, you're still a beginner. You're still learning. So why are you holding yourself to a class act or a incredibly small percent of people with an incredibly high level of talent and luck? Quentin Tarantino is one of my favorite directors, and he made Reservoir Dogs when he was 27. I'm turning 27 this year and I'm not even close to that. But that's okay because I'm still learning, I'm still practicing, and I'm not Quentin Tarantino. Just like that painter should be telling themselves, I'm not Monet. Just back on the subcategories, I want to break that down a little further because I think it will help people understand what I mean by dividing it into practice and filmmaking. Basically, take a line and take a bunch of projects and tell yourself that these are just practice and it does not matter about the outcome. I'm simply practicing a small element, and make it a small thing. Make it just either a scene, or if you have the capability to make a small short film, do something that's like 5-10 minutes, very small amount of people, no budget at all, because you should just be practicing. And then when you feel like you've done enough in each, or you feel like you're ready to go into the next step, that's when you shift to the other side of the line, the filmmaking side, and you get all hands on deck. Maybe you put a bit of money behind it, or you get a fundraiser going. You take everything you practiced from maybe those 5 projects that you did and implement them into one big project. Not a huge project, it shouldn't be massive, because again, these are also learning steps. And then you can see when you've upped the scale that there's still little bits lacking in other areas, and then you go back and you do another 5 little projects with no money at all, and then you do it again, and you rinse and repeat. That should be the pattern that you do. And I'm not saying like do 5 and that's it. Like, do as many as you want. So we'll wrap this whole thing up by saying, please do not beat yourself up if you feel like you are lacking in a lot of elements or you haven't made any success. There's time. There's always going to be time. You can't just kick yourself and stay down because you haven't made it to the big leagues by 22 or 27 or 34 or 44 or 54. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter the age, just matters how much you put into it, how much you practice it, and how much you learn. And I say, if you can, just take the advice of jotting down all of the things that you feel you are weak at when it comes to filmmaking, and make those a priority to practice on in the time that you have. And then, when you're ready, just go make a movie.